Well, it's finally talk about what we have all been waiting for. It's time to talk about Tesla Model Y. Today's video is brought to you by Tesletter. It's a one-stop shop to get all of your Tesla news. If you don't have time to scour through Reddit and Twitter and watch YouTube videos, subscribe to Tesletter's newsletter. It comes to your mailbox once a week and contains all the information that's happened all over social media. In fact, there are things that I've learned from there that I had no idea. You can subscribe to them at testletter.com. Alright, so let's talk about Model Y. Today was supposed to start deliveries of Model Y. I think a very few got delivered. If not, it was just to employees, while some that were supposed to get theirs today got delayed. So we should be seeing them starting delivery tomorrow or as early as Monday. But today also leaked a lot of good internal photos as well as the official owner's manual for the Model Y. So we're going to take a look at the photos and the manual, and what we're going to cover today is the stuff that is not so obvious. The interesting factoids about the Model Y that are not quite as obvious, as well as some of the more obvious things, and compare that to the Tesla Model 3. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the general exterior of the vehicle. The Model Y is obviously, of course, bigger than the Model 3. We've seen size comparisons. One key highlight that I didn't see many people talking about is in the Model 3, there is a tow hitch. A tow hitch is an area where you can stick a tow hook into, and the vehicle can be towed through that tow hook. On the Model 3, there's a circular panel that can be removed, and behind that is where the tow hook gets inserted to. The tow hook is stored inside the frunk. In contrast, on the Model Y, the tow hook is in the frunk, but there's actually a tow hook on the front of the vehicle as well as on the rear of the vehicle. So it's one key difference on the exterior difference between the Model 3 and the Model Y. The other thing that I want to call out is that very recently, I think it was towards the end of last year, Tesla started including what's called a pedestrian warning system. So under certain speeds, your Tesla would emit a sound, and that can be found on the Model 3. There's a little speaker on the passenger side front wheel that emits that sound when you're going in reverse or when you're going forward. However, in the Model Y, I could not find anywhere in the owner's manual anything regarding a pedestrian warning system. It is present in the Model 3 owner's manual. Looks like the Model Y doesn't have a pedestrian warning system. Maybe for right now, so maybe early deliveries, you won't have one. My Model 3 doesn't have one because I got it a while ago, and I kind of like that. The next thing I want to call a special highlight to is if you know the Model 3, all the door handles to open the doors are electronic from the inside of the car. It's just a simple little button that you press. But there's also a lever. The lever is located only on the driver and passenger side for the Model 3. That lever is to be used in case power were to be lost in the vehicle and you needed to get out in an emergency, you can pull that lever. The problem about the Model 3 is that there is no emergency release for the rear seats. It's looked at as that's for kids, and essentially you could break the glass or pull them up front, but ideally you should have an emergency release in the rear as well, just not as easy to access. Thus, in the Model Y, it is included. So in the Model Y, on the rear seats, in what's called the map pocket, which is found on the doors of the rear seats, if you actually lift up the mat of the map pocket, you'll find a little plastic lever in there, or a little plastic cover in there. If you lift that up, there's actually a mechanical release cable. So it's not as easy to get to as the front, but there is an emergency release now available to the rear seats in the Tesla Model Y, which was not available in the Tesla Model 3. Now, let's talk about the trunk. We all know that the Tesla Model Y includes a power liftgate. Yes, a power trunk. You press a button, it opens automatically. You press another button, it closes automatically. The Model 3 did not have a power liftgate. The only way to get one is to install one aftermarket. So this is a nice feature and a nice add available only in the Model Y. Now, along with that, there are two sub-trunks in the Tesla Model Y. In the Model 3, there was only one. In the Model Y, there's two. The second one that's closest to the rear seats is probably going to not be there if you ordered the third row. I think that little divot that's in there is going to be used to occupy the third row, which is probably not going to be on risers like the other seats, thus allowing a little bit more headroom for children. Also, you'll find that the Model Y has two trunk pockets. Those are the pockets on the side of the trunk. The Model 3 only came with one on the driver's side. Also on the Model 3, there was an emergency release from the trunk, which allowed you to get out of the trunk if you happen to get stuck in it or were trapped in it. The Model Y does not include this. I guess it's because it's a hatchback and you could essentially crawl into the rear seats. However, I do want to call out that on the Model Y trunk, the trunk lid actually has two speakers mounted on it, and I'm just going to assume that those are the same speakers that are available on the Model 3 on the trunk shelf right behind the rear seats. The Model Y does include wireless charging up in the front. The Model 3 never came with this. It was a Tesla accessory that you had to purchase after you got your vehicle and is not included on any Model 3 today. So it's a nice add-on. But behind that, on the Model 3 had two USB-A ports. The Model Y sports one USB-A port and one USB-C port, thus kind of accommodating for different phones and different needs. Moving behind that, where the rear vents are for the rear seats, the Model 3 had two USB-A ports. The Model Y, you'll find two USB-C ports. Now, don't expect those ports to power something like your MacBook or anything that's requiring a high amount of power. I don't think it's going to be able to support that, but we'll know more once I get one in hand and I can check out the amps. Now, both the Model 3 and the Model Y, their rear seats both have a center armrest with two cup holders. There are coat hangers in both vehicles. They are push button coat hangers that pop out after you push them. However, the rear dome lights for the Model 3 were found on a crossbar that went across the top of the vehicle. On the Model Y, there is no crossbar. You have a big, beautiful glass, and so they can be found on the A-pillar that actually extends all the way back to the car. So when you're sitting by the door, if you look up, you'll find the coat hanger. You'll also find the touch button light. So both of them are activated with actually pushing that button or that coat hanger to activate. Now, when talking about the rear seats, the Model 3 seats were split as a 60-40 split, which allowed you to either fold down two seats at once or one seat at once. The Model Y allows you to individually fold down each seat. So if you wanted to fold down one seat or two seats or all three seats, or even just fold down the center seat to use as a luggage pass-through, you can do that. Both the Model 3 and Model Y both have latches that can help you fold down the seats when you're in the rear seats. However, the Model Y presents a new way of folding down the seats from the trunk using two buttons that are found on the driver's side of the trunk. Pulling on those buttons will fold down the seat for you from the trunk, so it'll help push whatever you need in from the trunk into the rear of the vehicle. Both the Model 3 and Y, the rear seat, the rear center seat specifically, has a extendable headrest. It stays hidden and tucked away so that it doesn't come in the way of you looking out the rearview mirror. But if you have someone sitting there, it can easily be popped up. Now, for those of you with children, both the Model 3 and Y have the same configuration for car seats. You can put a car seat in on either the passenger side or the driver's side. There's no anchor points for the center seat, and it's not recommended to put a child in the center seat. There are anchor points and there are tether straps available as well in the vehicle. Now, I know the question is going to be, how many car seats can you fit in there? Can it comfortably fit 3? The Model Y is slightly wider than the Model 3, but without any accurate measurements, it's hard for me to give a confident prediction, so we'll just have to wait till I get one in hand. Now, the next topic was always talked about that the Model Y would use less wiring. There's really not a whole lot of information about this, but if you look at the owner's manual, what you'll find is a diagram very similar to the Model 3 diagram. However, going through the center of the vehicle from the front to the back, you'll see on the Model 3 has 2 running lines, whereas on the Model Y, there's only one. I can only assume that that is because of the fewer wires being used in the Model Y that's allowed them to do this and depict this in the image that's present in the owner's manual. Now, both the Model Y and the Model 3 have the exact same service interval recommendations, so if you're unsure what that is, generally they recommend that it's on an as-need basis and that your car will alert you when a service is needed. However, it's recommended that brake fluid be checked every 2 years, AC replacement bag every 6 years, clean and lubricate your brake calipers every 12,500 miles, and rotate your tires every 10 to 12,000 miles. So nothing different can be found on the Model Y as opposed to the Model 3 when it comes to servicing your vehicle. Now, one thing you'll notice on the Model Y pictures is that the seats are identical to the Model 3. However, you'll notice a big plastic riser that's at the bottom of the seat. It's almost like they pulled out the Model 3 seat, they installed this base to just jack it up and put the seat on top of that. So that's going to give you an even higher stance, more visibility as you look out the front, and that's one of the key differences in the Model 3 and Y. Now, one question that was asked a lot is regarding towing. Well, if you look at the Model 3 manual, you will find a section on towing. Now, the Model 3 manual that I was looking at was recently updated, and it says that the Model 3 is not recommended for towing, and that to not use towing on the Model 3 unless Tesla has made an approved accessory for that, and that it talks about that it could cause risk or damage to your vehicle. Now, in the Model Y manual, there is no mention of towing at all. In fact, if you go under the weight section of the Model Y manual, it actually states that Model Y is not equipped with towing. So I don't know, are they not recommending to tow on Model 3 or Y? Is it just that they haven't confirmed it or tested it? I'm going to lead with the latter, that it's not been tested as to how much it can tow or what's recommended, and so thus right now it's not confirmed for towing. I don't think they're going to include any towing hitch. I think there is a panel to remove to mount a towing hitch, but as of right now, Tesla has not tested or approved anything to go there, so is not including that. But it may be available at a later time via an accessory. Now, when you look at the interior dimensions, there's a lot of numbers there, and everyone's going to want a different thing and call out a different thing. But what I wanted to call out was where it was the biggest improvement from Model 3 to Model Y. And looking at these numbers, what I really wanted to call out was the leg room of the rear seats. The leg room of the Model 3 in the rear seats was 35.2 inches. I have never had a problem sitting back there. It's always been comfortable. I'm never sitting back there when the seat is pushed back all the way, but my wife has said that it can get a little cramped. Now, on the Model Y, in retrospect, it goes from 35.2 on the Model 3 to 40.5. That's almost 5 more inches of legroom. And you know how much those 5 inches can be, especially if you ever flown on United and you get that United Premium. You know, you're not in first, you're not in business, but you get that next row, the kind of baller economy class. You get that 5 more inches. Like, it makes a huge difference. So I really like that legroom in the Model Y is going to be awesome. But as far as all other retrospects, you're looking at about a 1 inch, maybe sometimes 2 inch difference. It's not going to be leaps and bounds different. I think the seats are going to be fairly similar to the Model 3 seats. Also, of course, we know that the trunk storage space, Model Y compared to Model 3, the Model 3 was advertised as 15 cubic feet and the Model Y at a whopping 68 cubic feet. Now that's huge, and a lot of people ask, is that with the seats folded down? Is that stacking up because obviously it's got a height advantage where the Model 3 doesn't? I don't think it's including with the seats folding down, but I do think that because it's cubic feet, it does incorporate the space that you have to put things on top of each other. So being able to put luggage on top of each other, which actually is a little difficult in the Model 3 because it is kind of low. It's deep, but it's low. The Model Y frees that space up because it is a hatchback. So storage space in the Model Y is going to be amazing. Now, obviously, regarding like weight, you're going to see differences in weight. Obviously, the Y is going to be slightly heavier. I'll put that up on the screen here as well. But when it comes to a turning radius, right, from curb to curb, the Model 3 used to do that in 38.8 feet, whereas the Model Y only goes up by 1 foot, 39.8. So still, for a compact SUV, it's a great turning radius. Now, when it comes to wheels, the Model 3 has always had an 8.5-inch width wheel. No matter what wheel you choose, whether it's the 19s or the 20 Performance, it's always been 8.5 inches. However, when going into the Model Y, that it's no longer 8.5, but it actually bumps up to 9.5. And that goes through all of the wheels. And when you get up to the 21-inch wheels for the Model Y, the front is 9.5, but the rears are 10.5. So it's a really big call out that a Model Y, you're using a much wider tire. I think you'll get better grip on the roads. I think also with a compact SUV, it just gives you a lot better stance and grip on the road. So it looks like the Model Y is upon us, and this is going to be some fun and exciting times. Hopefully I helped reveal some really interesting key elements of the Model Y in comparing to the Model 3, and some things you probably haven't easily read about or heard about, because Model Y news is everywhere out there right now. So hopefully that was helpful. If you like this video and you want to learn more Y stuff, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit subscribe. Thanks for keeping up with me. I scrambled to get all this Y information. I've got the owner's manual and all the screenshots and everything like that. So hopefully you enjoyed this. And yeah, it's late. I got to get some sleep. I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.